Okay. So let's take a look at what I'm crafting. Oh dear. So, yeah. The other day I went out with one of my friends, so that's why there was no episode on the 8th, so I do apologize. Restreaming fun right now has been kind of crazy, because I just got a new Switch, so I'm just now, trying it out. And right now my husband is sleeping. And we have noise in the living room. So, yeah. What is the weirdest thing I've ever done? Story-wise, I was gonna talk about some funny things. My best friend and I, and this is my best friend from elementary school, was a girl by the name of Kristen. Yes, I'm gonna name drop her because she's actually pretty cool, and I think it's worth noting that I absolutely have always loved being her best friend, because there are some pretty funny things that we have done that deserves, okay, we're questionable. We're questionable kids, okay? Back when I was, like, in elementary school, we went to the same elementary school, so yeah, I could tell this story because it's actually pretty funny and relevant. Me and Kristen were in the same classes most of the time, and we always ended up with that one teacher that you kind of wonder why she's even teaching, because holy cow, the woman was questionable. I mean, I understand teaching is important, but when you have a teacher who probably should be in a mental ward, you tend to actually wonder how the hell this person got their teaching license. Or be around kids, for that matter. Okay. Growth formula delta. Okay, I'll do it. Ah, I got high quality. That was unexpected. So anyway, yeah, I had the teacher that probably even Rebecca Perrin would probably call an animated disaster area. Her name was Mrs. Eves. I could probably give you 100 different stories about this woman, and one of which actually ended with my mom actually yelling at her in multiple different ways. To be quite honest, I can tell you the reason why she yelled. had very little to do with the fact that this woman complained that I was left-handed. Okay, I can understand where teachers think that being left-handed leaves you kind of in a bad situation, but this woman was, quite frankly, pissing me off on most days as a kid because she kept switching my pencil to my left, to my right hand, which is something you don't do. So one day, my friend Kristen, who was sitting next to me, looked up and said, "Uh-oh." I was like, "Uh-oh what? You're supposed to be writing with your right hand." Oh, shit. So, here I was. I didn't say that, but my brain went, "Oh crap, what the hell?" So, of course, I had to switch my pencil to my right hand. Of course, at that time, my mother was not informed on this, so I wasn't sure how to respond. I really hated the class in the first place. And then my art teacher walked in. Mr. Powers is one of the nicest, most amazing art teachers we ever had. And hands down, he probably deserves an award for putting up with half the crap in our school. And he actually has some of his art hanging up in a museum somewhere, because he was a very good artist. And I actually found some of his art one time on eBay, and I actually wanted to buy it. Unfortunately, I did not have $300 to pay for it, so yeah, that was not my thing. But Mr. Powers decided he had heard enough. Came into my classroom with a huge "you do not touch her, you fucking bitch" bag of horse shit. And yes, that's basically, I think that's what he would have said if he was not in a bad mood. Of course, he was in a bad mood. Because, of course, this is the guy who gave us Jolly Ranchers for gifts in class if we actually did the proper procedure, or at least he thought it was the best way to get kids to actually have fun in class. He was, like I said, a really good teacher. And I honestly did not understand 90% of why he was yelling. Then again, I was a first grader, did not understand most of it, so you can bet my mother was called probably within 15 minutes of that, and of course, there was an emergency teacher's meeting with my mother. Of course, there was another incident that happened that actually, Kristen was never brought up about. There was a kid in my class who was, I swear to God, entitled. We don't know anything about him. I just knew that his mother did not want me in the class, because apparently having a special ed kid in the class was virtually non-existent. I am not fucking lying about that part. My art teachers actually, my mother actually defended me quite well. Then she called in the dog. Because my dad was also at the school with his having to deal with my sister's kindergarten teacher, who will be in another story a little later on in this, because she will come up eventually, because, my friend Kristen's brother was also in the same class as my sister. Now, her brother has had a lot of issues, mental, physical, those things that happen in life. And you don't know, because half the time, people don't bring this up when you have kids with learning disabilities, because 90% of them will not report it, and if they do report it, oh yeah, you're going to end up with a bunch of people hating life, and I mean hating life. Teachers who have special ed kids in the class will not listen. I had one teacher Mrs. Eves was probably the least of my worries. I had Mrs. Corson, a teacher who probably doesn't belong. And I swear she probably belonged in the normal ward, but then again, I don't know. Mrs. Eves, I believe back when I was like 14, I heard she had retired, thank God. There was another teacher I had that probably should have eventually been fired. But again, I don't think that these teachers deserve what kind of ill treatment that they got. Because half the time teachers don't get the training they need. Because half the training they get is basically whatever is available for that time. And I don't fully blame what these teachers did, because none of them knew how to handle kids with a non-defined learning disability who got easily distracted, and everybody thought it was ADHD. FYI, during that time, they attempted to medicate me, and that made it worse. My mother actually threw the medication away after she found out what was in it. Yes, my mother actually did her research and found out that whatever was in the medication would have made me massively, massively sick. And so she decided not to do it. I think I make a better archer than I do a freaking magician. I hate when that happens. Yeah, I make a better archer. I'd totally make a better archer. Than I do a black mage. Why is that? I could talk about a lot of the dumb things my school went through, that probably living up in a rural area like Evergreen, probably I can tell you, if you ever come down to Evergreen or go to Evergreen, you're going to notice a few problems. And it isn't exactly, it is very evident when you get there, because people will actually tell you, you will see that it's very homogeneous. There is no one way to look at it. Majority of the town is white, which sucks because my parents never raised me to notice the color of somebody's skin, only the part of who they are. That's probably why I absolutely love my friend Janelle. She was the only black kid in my class, and I totally thought she was, like, kick-ass cool. Well, the only reason she was cool to me was I absolutely loved the Barbies. She brought to my house. Great, I lost my crowd. I could not believe this. She brought to a birthday party a black Barbie. Okay, I had never seen a black Barbie before. I really, really wanted one. And yeah, she brought me there. I totally wanted one, and my mother was like, okay, you really want one of these? Yes, yes I do! I want one! Thank you, Mom! And of course she gave me one. Janelle bought me a black Barbie. I really wanted one. I don't know why. I hated Barbie. But yet I got a black Barbie because I really wanted one. Because it didn't look like a freaking whitewashed piece of weird plastic. It actually looked like a human being. I absolutely loved her. But, of course, I called her Charisse, which was pretty funny. Charisse was like anything. But I really was not a doll. I absolutely loved this doll. Unfortunately, my sister decapitated her at 14, so there goes my friggin' nostalgia. Thank you, Morella. But decided to say, I think one of my favorite stories comes from my my sister's classmate Chris, who was my friend Kristen's little brother. Chris loved to hang out with me and my sister. He absolutely loved it because we were close. We were extremely close. Not to mention, Kristen was the only kid in my class that actually bothered to show up at my birthday party because she wanted to show up. Unlike the rest of the kids in my class, who my sister literally bribed with cake, because there would be 2 birthday cakes because our birthdays were so close, they decided to put our birthdays together, was absolutely ridiculous. But yes, there I am, playing. But the fact that Chris and I actually got along pretty well was actually pretty cool because he was like having a little brother. A very annoying little brother sometimes, because to me, Kristen and Chris were kind of like family, because this didn't come out until years later because I didn't know what was going on, is there was a lot of infighting in her family, so Kristen viewed my house as sort of that escape, and modeled a lot of her parenting tactics, like my mom actually giving me and my sister our actual freedom to actually try things without feeling like being helicoptered over. Yeah, my mom was not really a helicopter parent. She may appear that way now because now she has lost one child. And oh my god, my mom is so funny about that. She absolutely loves my YouTube channels and the stuff I do. I'm thankful that she does watch my YouTube channel sometimes, because sometimes she gives me some of the most awesome advice ever and story ideas to talk about as I live stream. What is the dumbest story I could come up with me, Kristen, and Chris? This is a story that actually was in the middle of one of my tutoring sessions, because I wasn't instead for a lot of the things that people thought I was in for. I was actually there for tutoring in math, English, and an education course. And that was just a normal basic class on how to handle basic everyday things. It was just also I had speech therapy between first and 4th grade, because I didn't really speak up a lot because guess what? I couldn't. My parents, when I did speak up, people just made fun of me, and I felt like, oh, did I really want to be that way? No, I didn't. My mom was absolutely the only person who actually advocated for my education midway through elementary school. And the thing is, when your parents advocate for your education, 90% of the time, people make fun of you for it. And it isn't just the fact that people think, oh, you're in SPED, you're not that smart. No. It's not about being smart. It's about being yourself in a very different way. Kids with learning disabilities do not actually, I believe the most awesome thing that ever happened was when the diagnosis finally came out that I had dyscalculia, which means I can't do math. And when I do math, I have to focus on it and spend 99% of my fucking mind on freaking math. If not, my brain goes berserk, because my mind doesn't work the way a normal person does. Like, an average ordinary person can do math, and the tag term AO is not supposed to be derogatory. People who do not have a learning disability get that title because they've never had to go through an IEP meeting. They've never had to go through undiagnosed learning disabilities and advocation for medication that you don't need. Oh, FYI, yes, I was on medication for maybe a year before my mom decided to pull the plug because I ended up sick. No, I'm not fucking lying. I got sick off medication that was diagnosed, and then my mother went and got a fourth opinion. Not a third, a fourth. It took 4 doctors to tell her, it took the 4th doctor to tell her that this is ridiculous, don't give her that. And people started calling what I was doing as a child weird until I started going to science fiction and fantasy conventions. And then I started realizing I'm not alone. My friend Gwen introduced me to that. And I would love to introduce my friend Kristen to Gwen, Angel, and all that, because these are people that absolutely did influence a lot of my life, including, and not limited to, trying to create a fantasy world that I built in my own books. They helped build that. Kristen absolutely was part of that build. And a part of the stories in my mind come from being around her and her brother. Because one of my characters I designed actually came out just like Chris. And that was absolutely the awesome thing. I've never told Chris this before, and I would, but I can't. And it is the whole time-space continuum of telling somebody, hey, you actually influenced my life. Kristen and her brother literally gave me a love for fantasy and science fiction as growing up. Then again, they also gave me a lot of nightmares to contend with, because we all went through the same trauma, the same teachers, the same nightmares. And believe me, my teachers were fucking ridiculous. How many people have ever gone to kindergarten and you just sat there and you wonder, why the fuck is this teacher even teaching if she can't even control a classroom? Oh, well, you know, you gotta give that teacher a chance. Right, no. So, growing up in Evergreen, I have had my share of very frightening teachers. I rewatched Rebecca Parham's Scary Teachers, her teacher being a murderer. I wanted to do a very similar story, but it involves a classmate. There was a classmate of mine by the name of Shane. I'm name dropping him because, honestly, what he went through, really I wish no one should go through. His mother was, well, a piece of shit. This woman should never have been a mother. This woman literally left him one day at home by himself for 4 hours. Can you imagine being 9 years old and left at home for 4 hours, not knowing whether your mother is coming or not? Yeah, can you imagine that? No, I can't. And oh my god, my mother he came to our house because it was the closest house. It was also considered a safe space. My parents made my home the safest place for kids. And I feel horrible because, guess what? It didn't get any better for him as he got older. Because his older sister actually went back to California with his dad. Well, years later, and when he actually came to talk to me, I mean, we were like teenagers or adults, he told me that he loved coming to my house because we didn't turn anyone away. We didn't feel like crap. But we felt like crap for him because what kind of parent does this to their child? This really bugged me for years because what kind of parent does that? I know mine never did. My parents actually had babysitters and people that would come to visit us. One of my babysitters was gay and he was awesome. And that's what happened with Shane, is he would come over and my babysitter Tim would help him with his homework. And or help him understand that some of the name calling and stuff wasn't cute or funny. But one of the things is that I do remember, and I hope to God Shane's life is so much better, because yes, I've talked to him a few times on Facebook, I've talked to him a few times online, and his life has gotten so much better since his dad came back into his life. Since his father wasn't his father never abandoned him. Just so you know, his dad was pretty cool. Block of void glue, huh? So yeah, my dad absolutely was appalled by the way this kid was treated. And it had little to do with him being a bad kid. It had everything to do with him being a good kid. And parents like his just weren't that good. Although I can't say his dad was bad because he only saw his dad maybe once a year, if anything. And honestly, I literally thought his dad probably lived on Mars or something when I was a kid. I did not understand what divorce meant because it never happened around me, and I never saw it divorce. Now, another kid in my class was, she was very oblivious because, I absolutely loved her, but she was so oblivious to things that, it wasn't until 5th grade that she absolutely had reality kind of smash into her. And her name was, I'm just gonna say it, I'm just name dropping her. Her name is Dana. Dana was the sweetest, funniest girl in my class, but OMG, most oblivious girl I have ever seen. Her parents were, I felt bad because she just did not understand that she, even though she could afford an American Girl doll and got one for her birthday and became the envy of me because I really wanted an American Girl doll. I hated dolls, yet, oh god, give me an American Girl doll, I would have gone to town. I wanted Molly. What did Dana get? She got freaking Samantha. And absolutely loved this doll. And she had to show it off to nearly everyone with ears, including me, my sister, her sister, who had, Molly. And it wasn't just anything. They had the clothes. They had the whole shebang. And you're looking at poor little me, whose parents barely had gotten by, and half my clothes came out of the clearance rack at Sears or Made-in-F, and now called Macy's, I think. But OMG, my mother was like, has anyone explained to Dana that my daughter can't afford this? My mother still had to explain to Dana's mother that it was, inappropriate to tell 4-year-old, tell poor me that I could afford it. Oh, and then she got it in her head, because of course I had porcelain dolls in my room, that if I could afford porcelain dolls, I could definitely afford this. Or if I could afford that My Little Pony that my parents bought, which, FYI, My Little Ponies were a gift usually from my grandmother. And then, of course, Dana's mother, a very sweet lady too, had to explain, no honey, Nagi Electro can't afford that. I'm sorry. Oh, but Mom, can you buy it for her then? I mean, Dana, albeit she was a sweet girl, albeit she was very sweet, but utterly, completely clueless. It wasn't until 5th grade that the cluelessness stopped. 5th grade, she found out my school supplies got stolen. And she told her mother. Her mother turned around and told my mother. Of course, my mom already knew and was, by all accounts, very pissed off because guess what? We can't afford, FYI, to buy school supplies. I am not freaking kidding. Our school supplies in my house, growing up, were usually bought by my grandparents. My grandfather and grandmother, Wanda and Olin Board, bought my school supplies. They would send my parents money, and part of my birthday money went toward school supplies. I did not have money to burn. My great aunt sent money, like $100 for my birthday one time. Then again, she also thought I was like perpetually 6 years old. And my mother and I would go to the store. She would buy me one thing that I wanted, but here's the funny fact, is when you're like 6 years old and you're not that rich, it shows. Because some of my clothes did come from a thrift store. Some of my clothes did come as secondhand, and that was the way it was. That was just, I was used to that. I was not surprised or upset. That was just the way my childhood was. I thought every kid was like that. No, Dana had to teach me otherwise. But she wasn't like... I think the nicest part about Dana, she wasn't like the little rich, snotty girl. There was a girl like that named Candy who was, spelled K-A-N-D-I. She was a total snot. My parents, to me, being poor was normal. Being broke was normal. Being told, no, we can't afford that, Electro, I'm sorry, was normal. But growing up, that was just the normal thing. People didn't realize we were poor. They always thought we were rich because my grandfather got me a Nintendo when I was like, got me a Nintendo for Christmas. We had to wait a year before it came out to actually use it, but we actually had it. But my mother did say, we're not rich. I don't understand how people think we're rich and we're not. And that's when I realized my friend Kristen understood what we were going through, because she was going through the exact same thing. we were poor. We were poor kids. We didn't have a lot. And when she moved closer to me, she started actually hanging out at my house because guess what? It was the safest house in the neighborhood. We had kids who literally didn't like us showing up at my front door on Halloween or on Christmas, and they felt safe with us because we weren't the type of people that turned people away. After a while we had to, but eventually I started to understand where my mom was coming from. That some of the people in my neighborhood, or some of the kids that I grew up with that thought that we were the weird family, soon realized we're not so weird. We're actually pretty damn normal. But it's people like, I don't know. I felt kind of odd when my best friend was telling me, oh yeah, your house was the safest house in the neighborhood. And then I realized a lot of the stuff my mother had told me about my family actually made sense. Like, my cousins, my family did not talk about a lot of the stuff that happened, but they did tell me that the people that I used to hang with loved coming to my house because we didn't chase anyone out. We loved everybody. And that's probably why I want to talk about the crazy-ass teachers we had. Let me talk about... We had one teacher that I called Miss... we'll just start with saying... I will start with Mrs. T. Mrs. T was my second grade teacher. And the reason why I don't want to give her real name out, and it has a lot to do with the way Mrs. T was not a mean teacher. She actually did a lot of good things. She was actually really, really super nice. Mrs. T actually showed me that it was okay to look at like horror movies the way I did. Because I saw 1931 Dracula when I was like sick at home with the flu, and my dad had to call me in anyway. Like, might as well show me a classic horror movie around that time. And we were sitting there, and she would show me pictures of the costumes and stuff. I mean, the woman was really well educated. I loved her. And unfortunately, she was also kind of a bit of a ditz. Her husband was military, and she got to go to Egypt. In fact, I still have one of her gifts. In fact, it's always been in one of my music boxes at all times, and that was an Egyptian scarab. She bought an Egyptian scarab from the market. She bought only 7 of them, and it only cost her, from what I told me, only cost her $5 to buy like 25 of them, and there were only 25 in the class. And she showed us pictures on slides of the city. She also told us horror stories of the driving. Because apparently, according to her, there are no road laws in road safety laws in Egypt. In fact, it's called Make a Road. Because, you know, yeah, make a road. My parents absolutely did not like her. I don't think it was because of that. It was because she didn't challenge my reading enough. And my grandmother over that summer had bought me a bunch of books to read, including Little Critters and stuff like that. I was still into picture books by then. In second grade, I was still into picture books. I got into chapter books, but one of the most worst books I ever got to, and I will complain to all hell and back about it, is Mouse and the Motorcycle. Even though I had already read all the Roald Dahl books because my friend Kristen read them. In fact, she bought me a couple of them for Christmas and birthdays. The other one she absolutely loved was Peppy Longstockings, which she dressed up as for Halloween one year. I don't know why I remember that, because her mother was really proud of that costume. But the thing was, it did not faze me much, but it fazed me a lot because I memorized an entire book, and a bunch of kids got really mad at me in my class. And Kristen was there just to say, yeah, she protected it. She was into that. And I mean, I did not hate the fact that I was brought up on that I wasn't allowed to read at a certain grade level, even though I was allowed to actually read books that are higher in quality. When I turned 11, I would say that was, Mrs. T did try her best. But the meaning that really struck me was the fact that my teacher did not believe me when I told her that one of the books that I had got stolen and put in with her books. And she didn't believe me. And that changed my point of view on teachers, that I stopped trusting them. It wasn't until like 7th grade until I actually had a teacher I trusted, who was my freaking choir teacher. My choir teacher was a freaking genius, and I absolutely loved her. She did not hate me, but she did tell me that these people were great people. But I was very depressed because during that time, I had an art teacher who didn't listen. One of the teachers I had, when I was in, I believe, 5th grade, my whole point of view changed. My personality changed a lot in 5th grade because I actually had a personality change, and what it was is I actually matured a lot faster. I started to actually, you know, have a period, do all that teenager stuff, but also the fact is, in 5th grade I got massively bored with people and their bullshit. I had a teacher who literally told me that because people did not treat me like a human, I was treated pretty crappily. And I think that was not entirely, I think most of my personality got shaped by that meeting with Mrs. T. And then I changed in 4th grade. By 3rd grade I had, alright, I'm gonna lump 3rd and 4th grade together because I literally had no clue, because I had Mrs. Lewis and Mrs. Smith. Mrs. Lewis and Mrs. Smith were, by all departures of any group of people, some of the nicest, most friendliest people I had ever met. I had no interest in really making a lot of friends because I had my group of friends in Girl Scouts. Like my friend Dana and Margaret and my friend Bree and a bunch of other people. And I realized now, I also had a friend named Colleen. And I realized now, I actually had quite a few people who actually stood up for me. And I didn't realize it until later when I realized, standing there talking to Kristen, she reminded me of many of the people I was friends with, who absolutely did tell me, yes, you had that. You had those friends standing there talking to you. And it cringed me up a little bit because they didn't talk to me, although they did get mad that I wasn't there. They didn't see me for a long time. And then I met one of my friends later in life who remembered me, because it took her a while. And I also met one of my former bullies. One of my former bullies literally said he did not understand what was so wrong with me. He didn't see me as a special ed kid, but he made fun of me because of the fact I was poor, and his family was rich. But then again, there was another girl in my school who was named Alicia. Now, Alicia moved to our school when I was in 3rd grade, I believe, and her grandfather was a senator. I mean, this man was Mr. Cisneros, and he worked for the school, and he was not the dumbest person I had ever met. He actually hired my mom as part of the campaign he was running. He literally loved my mother. He wanted her to be part of the whole thing. She was president of the PTA at the time. Or, no, she wasn't president. She was part of the planning commission for the PTA. She did all this stuff with me. She was in Girl Scouts with me. She was the cookie mom for 2 years. And I remember that Dana's mom absolutely thought my mom was like the queen of everything. But my mom and Kristen's mom just did not get along as well. But they tolerated each other because their daughter and me were friends. And I loved Kristen as a sister. And we were like sisters. We had birthdays. I mean, I could not imagine spending days not having her in my neighborhood playing with me. And when we moved to out of Evergreen, it hit her like a brick. Now, I'm going to start with 5th grade because that's the year my friend Dana realized how broke my family really was. And that was also when she discovered that my vest for Girl Scouts, because I had just bridged to junior, I believe in 4th grade, and my vest was homemade. All of the entire Girl Scouts group made their vests. We learned to sew. We made our own stuff. We were not slouches. We were not your typical Girl Scouts. I mean, we were pretty damn good. And our troop got split into 2. Because 2 troops, guess what? The reason why it was split actually makes a lot of sense. Let me tell you why. Our troop went from 25 girls to nearly 40. Which wasn't heard of, and Mile High Council made the executive decision to split the troop. They made that decision. I did not. My mother did not make that decision. My dad did not make that decision. Mile High Council made that decision, and now the council's called something completely different. But at that time, as a kid, I was just this awful feeling of being betrayed because my stuff got stolen. And that was when Dana, out of the sort of like, told her mother that I couldn't afford my school supplies. And she offered to buy me new supplies. And this was the first time I ever had Dana come to my rescue and unfortunately my mother, being the way she was, did want justice because they did wrong. Whoever stole my stuff did completely the wrong thing. And the worst part is, the kid that was blamed for it was a boy by the name of Matt. Matt, M. We'll just call him Matt M. Matt M was innocent. His family was just as poor as me. And the worst part is, he came from a family, and he was like the only Hispanic kid in our neighborhood. His family was rich enough to afford Evergreen, but poor enough that they could not afford going to public. They could only afford public school. Matt also wanted me to join. He wanted me to join Taekwondo with him. He figured it was the best way to afford to protect myself. That and I accidentally beamed him in the head with my umbrella after he said something stupid, which was pretty dumb of me, but again, this was a kid who actually came to my defense many times, and I felt bad because people told me, oh, he must have stolen it. And the worst part is, in Evergreen, they used, what was it? They told me they used his race as a reason. You can't trust him because he's Hispanic. What the fuck is your problem, people? He's not a problem to me. I literally told my mom what they told me, and she said, don't worry about it, it'll get handled. Months later, before I moved out of the neighborhood, we got a phone call from my teacher, Mr. E, to come to his office. During that time, everyone was at recess, and my mother walked in, and there was my trapper. There was my favorite trapper on the desk, with all my homework in it. They never found out who stole it, but they knew where it was hidden. My mind still boggles me that someone would steal something just to be out of spite. Because I was just this girl who just decided not to take it anymore. Yes, I didn't take it anymore. I was absolutely the most I was done. I was finished. And my personality changed. From 5th grade, I literally stopped caring what people thought about me. I decided to start the school year, and one of the things that happened was this boy in my class, I think his name was Jeffrey. Jeffrey was just this dummy of a kid, and he told me he said something, and I was standing in line, and all I remember is saying, right, sure, it doesn't look cool to me. He suddenly looked up in shock and said, what the he did not like that. He did not like me trying to be a person who was different. I wasn't different. I was being myself. And he realized that my entire personality, I stopped crying, I stopped acting like a child. In fact, he said that was just the worst part of it, is he didn't like my attitude. He didn't like the fact that I grew up. He wanted me to continue being that crybaby of a girl. But he realized later on, that's not going to happen. I no longer feared rejected by everybody in my school. I, being the way I was, grew up to absolutely love doing something different. Over that month, I went to Girl Scout camp. I did something different. I was no longer going to be a scared child. I was a teenager. I was becoming a teenager. And 5th grade was just that opening up to going into 6th. And I was not going to be a baby anymore. I decided I'm done being that child. I decided to be the adult, the teenager. And the thing was, what really got some kids going is my friend Ben taught me about a bunch of stuff that really I shouldn't have known. I mean, how many people actually go to elementary school in and go to a 6th grade drama class and perform like a fucking adult. I was in community theater. I was in art classes. I was doing things that my parents could not understand. And then my mother decided to teach me everything I needed to know about growing up. I wasn't a child anymore. I was a teenager. And it turned into that year being my year. I was no longer scared of being called a mentally challenged person. I was tired of the labeling, I was tired of the bullshit, and that's why my 5th grade year, I was homeschooled. I literally was homeschooled for a year because my mother could not afford to buy any more school books, and so we decided to homeschool and unlearn the things my school was teaching me. And one of the first lessons I learned was about the ethics of being a child. I learned real history from my mother. We didn't learn from going to the museum. I was a homeschool. These were non-religious homeschoolers that my mother introduced me to. She introduced me to homeschooling for non-Christians. I was taught basically. I also learned a few things about melodramas like Dynasty. Just so you know, that was a thing. My mom actually did let me watch Dynasty. But the thing was, I learned about also the one thing I learned was that people are jerks, and then you learn to do what you usually do to protect yourself against that. You start acting like an adult that doesn't put up with it. And parents will teach me all the things I need to know. I didn't have to I learned math, but I learned math a different way. When I told people I had dyscalculia, my parents literally told me, dyscalculia is a thing. You are not a child of the dyscalculia. Having dyscalculia does not make you a mentally damaged person. What makes you a damaged person is if you are surrounded by people who think you are damaged. I learned that I am not a damaged person. I'm a human. I also learned that being a teenager meant. But the other thing I also did is I got to read books that I wasn't really shown until I was a teenager. I read Redwall for the first time. Brian Jakes, oh my god. I read Dune. I read books that were actually not meant for my age. In fact, I read The Hunger. I read Ghost in the Shell books. I mean, the first thing I ever was introduced to that never made sense which made no sense to me, is there were people in my school at Wilmot that did not know that I was reading at nearly a college level. My parents thought it was weird that even though I could read in 5th grade at college, I wasn't like given that whole, hey, you are supposed to be at this grade level at 6th grade. No, my 6th grade teacher at Westridge gave me a whole new perspective. I was allowed to read any book I wanted as long as it pertained to the school book. I could do a book report on it later. FYI, yes, I know, that is actual bullshit. No teacher actually really lets you do that unless they're trying to teach you something. FYI, yes, she was trying to teach me something. And her name, I will tell you this now, was Miss Juarez. Miss Juarez was a freaking queen. She will tell you, if you ever talked badly about her, I would have yelled bloody fucking murder. Because OMG, do not fuck with that teacher. She did things that probably would have gotten us in trouble. I mean, she had a running rivalry, believe it or not, with a teacher at the special ed teacher named Miss Lallam. She had this running rivalry with. And I'm not lying, it was freaking funny. And Miss Lallam and me, the worst part is I was in on it the whole time in 6th grade, so you can imagine what it was like being in 6th grade and having a teacher with a fucking rivalry between a special ed teacher and me. And I'm just sitting there going, dude, this is cool. But yeah, I was not a kid who actually didn't want to be part of that. But also, my 6th grade year, we had a teacher who actually would do something called the 6th grade treat. What she would do is she would pick 3 kids in the class, and these 3 kids are given a special assignment. In the assignment, you are, if you complete the assignment, she will give you a pizza. But the thing is, she had it graded on a point variant. If you got a certain amount of points, you would get the pizza as a reward. It took me 6 tries to get that damn points down. In fact, I got the points. I ended up actually exceeding the points ratio 6 times before my teacher actually told me. After a while, she actually disqualified me. And I will tell you why she disqualified me. Because, I'm a goody two-shoes, and I wanted to actually succeed where others had failed. And my teacher thought I was overzealous on the whole, you want to do what now? Yeah, I wasn't exactly, what you would call a very due diligence on teaching. I had teachers who thought I was overcompensating on a, yeah. I wanted to be a genius, and unfortunately, when you are a special ed kid, you are considered special needs, and they forget that you actually are smarter than you look. So you end up with teachers that go, "Oh, you can't do that. You're in special ed. You can't do that. How can you do that? You're in special ed." And then you hear me, "Shut up already. I'm too smart for this." Because sometimes they'll feed into that ego of, "You're not that smart. You're not going to get very far." And then they find out the hard way that you just looked at them and went, "Never mind, I'll do it." I did it. FYI, what I did is still considered in bad form. Do not tell your teacher you are too smart for a stupid assignment, because she'll end up doubling the assignment and you'll still have to do it anyway. I'm not lying. I had a teacher actually do that. And her name lives in infamy. I literally had to be in her class. I have one other teacher, and in 6th grade, I met him. His name was, I forget what his name, I'll call him Mr. S just to be sure. He was a really super nice guy. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened to him, but in 6th grade, I was in his science class, and there was a boy in my class named Brandon who noticed something in my arm. he made a note to me that maybe I might need to go to a teacher. I might need to go see a doctor. So when he told me that, being the way I was, I didn't quite believe him. But then again, I was a different kind of kid, so my parents didn't exactly understand the whole concept of me getting sick, considering I never got sick, unless I got, like, the chicken pox or something. And, FYI, chicken pox for me was like, I stayed home and I was itching all over the place, and as soon as if I have kids, and I am able to, I am so getting them vaccinated. I don't give a rat's ass. I am so getting my kids vaccinated for chicken pox. FYI, that's not an amiable way of saying things, but you know what? I'm definitely gonna be one of those damn parents who will vaccinate her kid no matter what she does. Because people are going to tell me I'm gonna give my kids autism or something dumb like those anti-vaxxers say I do. I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna just say, I'm giving my kids a vaccine, whatever the fuck you want. You can just torture me later. The worst they can do is call CPS and then tell CPS that I abused my kid by giving them fucking vaccines for illnesses that will prevent them from dying. I'm just gonna say that right now. I'm gonna be one of those parents, people. don't, if you don't like that on my channel, what you do blah da day, I don't give a rat's ass. If my kid gets sick off of one of the vaccines, then I will take it seriously, but until then, no. I am definitely giving my kid a vaccine, just to avoid the humiliation of chickenpox. And FYI, yes, chickenpox suck. Do not get me wrong, I really do not wish chickenpox on my worst enemy with the way I was raised with them. Yes, I always ended up gaining when I got sick once, I'm also married to a man who never had chickenpox. Which really bugs me because what if my kid gets chickenpox and he gets chickenpox? Because, oh my god, he's gonna get so sick. But, yeah, that can happen to you too. One of my other stories that absolutely needs to be covered is me and Kristen during theater. Kristen showed literally no interest in theater until I said, oh yeah, I'm in theater. And she's like, but I want to be in theater too. She did not like being left out on that one, but her mom just could not afford the fee, and how we afforded the fees is my mom actually worked with the director, and he was also a childhood friend of mine who gave me the best start in cosplay ever and costume design. I am not freaking lying. If Jimmy Murphy is seeing this, kudos to you, man. You taught me to be a cosplayer, so I learned it from the best. I learned it from a theater director, so haha. So I was in community youth theater. I was also in crazy art classes. I was in community classes that probably my parents should not have been able to afford, but with some gerrymandering and my parents being the way they are, yeah, my parents let me do it. But my parents were the kind of people that taught me that being a kid is not about being turned into a living, breathing nightmare. But one of the things I learned from my parents, and this is one of the biggest things that people forget, is when you're a teenager and you are being tortured day in, day out by your bully, it does wear on you. And being bullied sucks. Now, I actually was lucky on some accounts because Like Rebecca Parham, she had Buford. I had Matt M. and Shane's to deal with. And Shane was the kind of boy who did that whole gendering of Star Wars and getting a nightmare fuel of me destroying a Barbie with a stupid three-headed dragon toy called King Godira, which turned out to just be a damn toy that my mother gave me. But my mom also gave me a lesson, and it was a lesson I do not want to forget. And that's, people are the dumbest people you'll ever meet. You're never going to feel like shit for people who cannot understand you as a human being. FYI, that is life. You learn to deal. But you also learned one of the most important things. Your family is also your worst nightmare. Because sometimes there are things your family does that you just want to know what the hell is wrong with you. Now, my mother has this story about me as a kid doing something I shouldn't have done. Now, every parent has that one story of their kid doing something excessively stupid. My story wasn't about me being stupid. It was about me not telling my mother there was somebody doing something stupid. I.e., my stupid little sister. And when I say my stupid little sister, my dumbass little sister did one thing, and it was really a doozy. What did my sister do? She got drunk at 12. I was 13. I did nothing to do any of this, but here is what happened. My sister was really stupid. Let me give you the FYI on what she did that was so fucking stupid. Alright, my sister absolutely did this, and it was dumb, I know, but here we go. My sister attempted to do something so dumb, she found my parents' P collection. Adult videos. Yeah, adult videos. The adult videos were fucking gross as hell. Even I questioned my mom later in life about these damn VHS tapes, which my mother thankfully got rid of. My mother got rid of these. I literally, did not want to get my sister in trouble. She had a friend over. I think her name was Amanda. And next day, my mother decided to illustrate the importance of the fact that my sister was learning how to hangover. And she viewed that as punishment enough. Not really, in my opinion. She was my mother, and my mother has the weirdest sense of teaching me about being a kid. My mother is a fucking nightmare when it comes to children. Don't teaching a child anything, because guess what? My mother is not perfect. My mother is I am not your mom unless you do something extremely stupid and I have to come in and tell you and give you a lesson. My mom literally taught me the dumbest lesson ever in that. Because she used my sister's hangover as a huge lesson of don't do this. And of course, my lesson, she actually used it as a teaching experience, but then she later learned I learned that lesson and I didn't drink. Because I just had no interest in drinking. I wasn't a real alcohol-oriented person and I had no interest. And drinking alcohol to me just made me really hate life. Because guess what? I grew up in... I learned what convention life is like. And yes, I met most people at conventions, so can you imagine the double standard I had to live with growing up? So my mom said, okay, so Electro isn't an alcoholic. She doesn't like these kind of drinking. Thank you. But the thing was, I only drink on special occasions. Unless there is wine, unless there is some kind of really massive, like, beer is not... I don't think beer tastes good. It was because of my sister that I learned I didn't like alcohol as much as she did. I would not go out drinking. I would not go out to a bar. I was too busy doing things my way. Like, my idea of a good time was sitting there watching anime or watching a really good movie. By the way, one of my favorite movies growing up was Star Wars, still is, and I ended up with some really good friends because of Star Wars. But I also ended up with a bunch of fandom bullshit that I just sat there going, what the frick is your problem? After years of listening to people tell me that being nerdy is kind of stupid, I watched videos, and I actually have to say, people like Rebecca Parham, Illymation, and many of the other cartoon crowds which I watched videos of, I absolutely enjoyed because some of their stories I can relate to. Because I've been there! I've done it! I've seen the aftermath, and I think Kristen and I had one of the most awesome childhood ever, is when we actually can sit there and go, oh my god, we were so stupid back then. Because people actually think, when I was a kid, that I actually did some pretty stupid, crappy things to get attention, and I didn't. Most of my stuff on these videos, I don't really want to get attention, but I end up getting attention anyway. Not from people I really like. But there are people that come on and watch my videos, and I really appreciate them. They're not, like, okay. One of my really good friends, and I'm gonna just say hi to, is Dirk Mez. He is awesome. I want you guys to watch his videos, because some of his videos are freaking informative and interesting. Rebecca Parham. Watch her videos. Her animation is freaking awesome. And she's really smart. I absolutely adore some of her stuff. Because some of her stories relate to some of the stuff I went through back in the 80s. She's a little younger than me. But I can tell you stories from my childhood that would really be similar to hers, because there were things my sister and I did that were not funny, but are funny now. Like, going to see movies. I literally never went to see... Okay. I'm not gonna lie, people think this is really bad. I actually got nightmares from the movie Aliens. And my sister ate that stuff up like fricking candy. Horror movies, she will eat it like candy. She literally dragged me to go see a movie I literally hated. But unfortunately, because she's my sister, I went to do it anyway. My little sister dragged me... I think the funniest story I could do with me and Kristen was the one day we destroyed my entire copy of Labyrinth in one sitting. We had to get a new copy of it, but that wasn't until like 3 years later. Kristen and I watched the movie Labyrinth 100 times. One day, my sister decided to get Return of the Living Dead Part 2. Why they made a Part 2, I do not know. But Return of the Living Dead with punk rockers on it, on the cover, she literally ate that up like fucking jam. She loved that stuff. Until I told her, I convinced her she was eating pig's brains sandwiches. Yeah, that was a really bad move on my part, but then again, I got really tired of the movie, and the stupidest thing is, her and Kristen's brother were sitting there watching the movie, thinking it was awesome and cool, and in my room I had an ancient VCR, and we went out and decided to watch Labyrinth. Of course, let's watch Labyrinth. We did. Before the years of DVDs, before the years of all that jazz, there we were watching on VHS these movies. And wouldn't you know it, I think we wrecked that video so many damn times, my parents just sort of gave up on me. But the truth is, my parents didn't really give up. They just sort of told me that life is just that way. I'm not gonna lie, I understand where they're coming from. But I also know my mother wasn't like... Everyone assumes your parents are like the most awesome people, until you realize my mom was not Miss Perfect. My mom was like not the best parent sometimes. And this was not one of her more parenting things. She asked us why we weren't watching Night of the Living Dead with Morella. Well, we got really tired of watching that movie for the 15 billionth time. So we were watching Labyrinth, and my VCR ate the tape. Both me and Kristen are looking at each other going, uh-oh, what do we do? Okay, just a sec. Mom! My mother comes in thinking we probably killed something, and we point to the VCR, and of course, she pops the video out, and yes, it ate the tape. In fact, my dad had to come in and take it apart and get the tape out, because the tape was stuck in there. I mean, it had the pop-up type, where you stick the tape in and then you pop it down. Yeah, it was like that. Except when we hit eject, it wouldn't eject. It just stayed stuck. So my dad had to go in with a screwdriver, unscrew the thing, and put it back together. This is why the one thing I didn't like about garbage picking, which my dad did on a regular basis, you had to be literally doing that constantly to the stupid thing. My parents later just decided maybe we should just get Mariah an actual VHS player, which they did secondhand. I have never had anything brand new growing up. I literally had nothing new growing up, and many people were like, holy crap, your mother... So of course, we were kids. We were too young to understand what was going on. So my mom explained that we can't afford to get Mariah a new... Yeah, we can't afford to get Electro a brand new VCR, but we can get her a used one. So we ended up with the neighbors. Yeah. I'm that kind of kid. I had used stuff. I mean, used. My parents literally bought me used everything. I'm sorry. When people say that, it's like the worst thing you can do to your child is buy used. Hello. Most of my clothes came from fucking Goodwill. What do you got it? People think that it's so bad to give your child Goodwill clothes. By the way, I'm sure that that's not entirely true. I actually got new stuff, maybe once a year. And I am not lying, once a fucking year. For my birthday, I got brand new shit. So, my parents, quite frankly, were often considered bad parents because by the time I lived in Littleton, Colorado, I had brand new stuff. My parents were able to afford it. And hello to the new watcher. So, yeah, that was actually pretty funny. I literally had nothing better to do with my life as a kid. I honestly didn't. How many times have you ever heard a child say, I love being broke? You don't hear that very often. No, you don't. Trust me. So, yeah, my parents literally thought it was a good idea just to, you know, level the playing field. By the time we lived in Littleton and my dad had actually gotten a raise at his work, that was the only reason we moved. To be honest, that's the only reason any of us moved. My dad called it the, not always the easiest move for me. I think my dad said that I felt half of my childhood die that day. To those of you who've never grew up in a experience like that, try being a daycare kid and you will understand a few of the dumb nuances. Although I was sexually assaulted at a daycare center, so I wouldn't recommend it, but then again, that was 1980s and there were standards changed. I'm kind of glad those standards changed, because that boy was a fucking predator. So, yeah. The other one that absolutely cracked me up about living as a kid in the 1980s, and it's one of those things that you guys, if you were born in the 90s and you do not know what a VCR is, you count yourself lucky, because I could tell you horror stories about VCRs. And they wouldn't be half wrong. When I was a kid, we had the VCR. The most noted of devices, the most wonderful of, that has a where you have to adjust the tracking just to get the VHS tape to work right sometimes. Or be nice, please rewind. Or be kind, please rewind. Being a sticker on the dang thing. Having to return videos to a video store, hoping that the person who had the video before you didn't damage the damn thing before you could actually watch your movie. Or, in my case, wanting to get Star Wars and being stuck getting Battlestar Galactica stuff. But you know what? Battlestar Galactica wasn't that bad, so you can't be that picky as a kid, okay? But people always talk about, oh my god, you were so deprived as a child. Just so you know, no, I wasn't. I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't get a cell phone until I was like 24. No, 21. I didn't get a cell phone until I was 21. Let me see, the other one. Don't count yourself badly. Do not say anything bad about the person who does not have a cell phone until they're like 21, because your parents were broke and you still lived with them and you couldn't afford to move out, and yeah, that was me. I was the poor sap that had to stick it out until I was like in my 20s, and people were like, oh my god, you're so deprived. What the fudge? No, I can go into the most hilarious stories of my childhood in the 1980s of the dumbest things I'd ever seen. I think the greatest invention for me as a teenager was the Tamagotchi, which, yes, my mother bought me one and then had to go back to Toys R Us because we had a defective one. And we had defective crap all over the damn place. I was one of those kids. Can you imagine the horror, the massive amount of horror I had to go through out my childhood, listening to people going, you're deprived. And then they realize, no, you're not. You're not deprived. You're the epitome of the stupid kid whose parents literally thought it was a great idea to take you to a daycare center and then not realize how pointlessly stupid that was. And then you sit there and you wonder, how the fuck did you become a teenager, and how the fuck is it you're a teenager and your family is a bunch of fucking irritating morons who can't figure out you're not a minor. Or my other favorite. What do you mean it's not? You can't afford it. No, I can't afford it, you fucking dickhead. I am fucking poor! Yeah, I actually had to yell that at somebody once. I'm not rich. I'm a poor peddler who lives. And then you have people going, oh, it's okay. You don't have to worry about that. Oh yeah? You don't have to go. You don't know half of it. No, you don't know half of it. You don't know half the crap I've gone through. Telling a person that you understand when you don't. Or my other favorite. What do you mean you can't stand that? You can't do this? My parents are rich. Yeah, that's wonderful. You're a dumbass. I mean, going through my childhood and having to explain to people that being poor does not mean you are deprived. Being poor means your parents just did not plan anything when they had you, and then you had to go through the stupid act of going to work, and then you hear people going, oh my god, you were a deprived child, while their kid is like trying to figure out why the hell their parents are freaking fighting over finances. Duh, because you guys decided to have a kid and then decide you're going to try it. Try the whole parenting thing on a whim. FYI, yes, that actually happened to me, and it was freaking hilarious. When my parents could actually afford something, they literally were able to afford it wisely. It's called savings for a reason. My parents saved up so much money when I was a kid that I learned one of the most important things growing up. One, just because it's expensive does not make it good quality. I wish I could tell you how many times I've told a kid, LA Gears, when I got in LA Gears shoes, they didn't last me long. I walked the living hell out of them. Let me see the other one. Just because your friends are rich does not mean it means anything. I'm not lying. That was actually told to me by my best friend. But I'm gonna mention that throughout my childhood, I think the dumbest thing I've ever seen was the parent who couldn't quite grasp the fact that being poor is not a crime. Although there are times I really wish there was a way to shoot somebody when it comes to that one. Where they tell you, oh, you're poor, you can't afford this. And then 6 months later, I'm wearing the shoes that they had just said that were too expensive for me anyway, and not realizing I had money saved aside because I needed shoes. I never really buy anything unless I absolutely positively need it at that moment. Don't ever, for the life of me, tell me I can't afford something, because eventually I'll end up affording it. I learned the power of savings. I also learned the power of waiting until something goes on sale and then buying it. Yes, I learned that through my parents. And patience is one of the greatest gifts you'll ever have. So, to anyone who really thinks I'm procrastinating on things, FYI, I actually am not. I just like to save up until I actually can afford something. That's why it took me so long to actually get a Switch. I wanted the Switch Lite and not the actual real console Switch, because I can't stand those things because they look like clunkers, and I don't like anything that's big. I barely can handle a PS4, so don't even get me started. So, yeah. People think that because you're a poor kid growing up in Evergreen, Colorado, that you can't afford anything. Let me tell you, I can't. I'm a lot happier than I was when I was a kid growing up in Evergreen, being made fun of for being poor. Because guess what? I'm not poor anymore. I literally don't realize that. I work a really good job. I do these videos just for fun. I'm not monetized, but I have fun. I don't even think that having fun means I have to be a... I don't believe having fun is about being called... So, when I tell people that having fun for me is not about being a poor kid in a rich home, I'd say being poor is about not expecting anything beyond that. I remember one year my parents went up to Kristen's and said, we are inviting you to Thanksgiving. Because we found out that they weren't going to have a Thanksgiving because, well, yeah. So they came over to our house for Thanksgiving, and we just sort of hoped they'd actually enjoy being around us, because we were not, like, the most religious or the most, perfect family. We literally had no money, too, but we were able to afford to do Thanksgiving with our friends. My parents just were that kind of people. But what was nice is the fact that we weren't, like, totally, that and they got to meet my grandparents, which is really rare because Grandma Board and my grandfather rarely ever came to visit. And honestly, my grandparents usually would come during the summer. That's why winter was sort of like that rarity. The reason they came was because they just got tired of going to my great-grandmother's and the fact that people forget that you're a poor person. Then there's like a whole ton of memories I can give you about my family that can probably crack you up, but also give you a good perspective of what it was like growing up in the 1980s in a time where being broke was not exactly, I think this is probably when I believe, I do remember my mother explaining to a kid down the street that we did not have money to afford certain things. And that was the fact that my parents had to go to, I think this was the first time I ever met my sister's friend McAllen. And McAllen was cool. McAllen was like the coolest girl I ever met. I called her Mackie, but Mackie was like so fun. And her brother Jimmer was even funnier. And they moved out of state a while back, but McAllen and me kept up being friends because it was pretty worthwhile to stay close because she knew what we were going through. And yeah, there were times growing up that I think the weirdest thing was when we bought our first microwave and we started actually affording food. And affording food meant we could actually afford going to parks and doing things like that. In 1988, I went to my very first fantasy and science fiction convention, and I was 8 years old, and I got to meet, I actually cannot believe I actually met him. I met George Takei. I really enjoyed that growing up. I felt bad because Kristen wanted to come too, and that she didn't find out until later that I went. And I never felt more at home among the nerds. And that's where I've been ever since. My fandoms have been my family, but because I didn't have my friend Kristen, I didn't have Erica, I didn't have a lot of my friends back because they were gone. And learning from that, I learned that I had really good friends. But I also had my share of trauma that is from being a special ed kid who was told that they were going to fail no matter what they tried. People forget that when you are told all your childhood that you are a failure, you don't really get a choice. And it sucks because people are like, OMG, you're gonna make it. No, you're not. I literally told my friends, I don't want to go. You know what? Forget it. I'm not gonna. If I win it, I win it. Oh well, I don't care. But like many people in the fandoms that I was in, many people don't know what goes on in their childhood. You don't see it. You don't see it at all. You see people being stupid. I honestly don't care. I've seen the dumbest thing I ever went through as a child was and this was when Dana actually pointed this out to me one time, and I don't know where it came from, but the girl Candy went on this whole tirade that she didn't like me in my car because it smelled funny. Well, my mom had just cleaned the car, and the cleaner that she used made it smell like really bad leather. And it wasn't even that, it was because my dog threw up in the car. My dog Cindy got motion sickness, and motion sickness for dogs is really bad because they don't breathe peripherally like we do. So my dad sort of, And plus, there was no medicine for throwing up. So yeah. The other thing was, I also threw up because I got motion sickness too because I was stupid and I read in the car. I literally cannot read in cars. Okay, I can sit in now. I can sit in like a vehicle, like a bus, and I can read. But other than that, not so much. But people, when you grow up in where I was, in Evergreen, I think the dumbest thing that ever happened was there was this kid in my class named, I forget what his name was. I think his name was like, Ryan or something, and he literally was dumb. He was the dumbest thing I ever saw when it came to, common sense, because, there was this other kid in my class that actually was the reason why, Halloween got banned at our school. My mom literally hated the whole book character day thing, because, she said it was just the most uncreative thing she had ever seen. My mother called it the dumbest thing she'd ever seen because, again, Mr. Coberly, for the most part, but this kid, came to school for Halloween dressed as Freddy Krueger. And I found out later he absolutely loved Freddy. And I later, wasn't really so interested in watching it, but my friend, Angel is into it, so it was sort of funny now that I think about it, because, the kid just sort of wrecked Halloween for the rest of us by coming with the fake claws and the silly hat costume that he was so massively proud of that he literally called, I mean, he told me I was a chicken because I wasn't in the horror movie, but I was in the fantasy. I must have watched Legend so many damn times that I must have, like, had the movie memorized, because I gave the movie to my sister. I had to open it because I had to make sure the discs work. Because Walmart has the worst habit of having discs that don't work, so when I bought it originally. But when I was a college student, later I ran into him, and he turned out to be really cool because he was a costume designer for Halloween costumes. So he got to do what he wanted. But he said that the funniest thing is he did remember one of my costumes, which he thought was like the coolest costume ever. He called one of my costumes. He actually saw my skunk costume, my mother's skunk costume, and he really wanted it because he was like, I had the unicorn costume, which was this yellow unicorn, and then we got the skunk costume, which was embarrassing myself. My sister absolutely loves it. The other costumes that we did, which really didn't surprise me, was one of the other costumes that we did, which was actually not surprising, growing up in the 1980s, was She-Ra, Princess of Power! My sister dressed up as her, I dressed up as Snow White. Not one of my favorite costumes of all time, but you know, when you're little, I wanted to be Snow White. I wanted to be a princess, and unfortunately, I turned out to be just the opposite. I never wanted to be a princess after a while. I wanted to be Princess Leia! No, I wanted to be Luke Skywalker, honestly. I wanted to be a Jedi. I wanted to be a Jedi Knight. That was my biggest thing as a kid. I really wanted to be a Jedi Knight. But being told boys can be Jedi, girls can become closer really pissed me off because I hated being a princess. And now I am not a princess. I am totally a Jedi. I wanted to be a Jedi Knight, and then when I was growing up, everyone was like, "Oh my God, you wanted to be a Jedi?" Now it's okay. That's even funnier to me. It is now okay to be a Jedi. I am so glad that I am no longer able to be gendered like that. The Jedi cannot be a gendered thing. You could be a male Jedi, a female Jedi. I mean, look at Ahsoka Tano. Come on, that girl's my queen when it comes to being the best Jedi female. I adore Clone Wars, and I literally thought it was fun growing up, being told, girls can't be Jedi, but boys can. Fuck you. Screw that, I'll be a Jedi if I want. My parents were like, yeah, tell that to my oldest daughter. She'll choose Jedi over that. The other thing was, growing up, I really loved Luke as a character, and everyone's like, oh my God, you must have had sexual fantasies about— what the frick are you talking about? In 6th grade, I got to actually enjoy the literary Luke Skywalker. Not the Mark Hamill one, the one in the book. That was who I really admired. I didn't care about— I cared about the visual Luke, but I loved Luke as a character. But growing up in the 80s, I didn't have that. I didn't have comic book Luke. I didn't have that yet. My parents had Luke Skywalker, the character on the book. And I was a kid. I was a child. Oh, fuck. My parents did not want me to feel like I was not gonna make it as a kid, being treated like crap. But when I got older, it got better. I got so much better. I got so much cooler. I got so much easier life than I thought. And then I got older, and then I got to meet David Prowse, which, by the way, he was inside of Darth Vader, so that counts. Anyway. People always talk about how Luke Skywalker is the person to meet. I got to meet Darth Vader. I got to meet the man who was Darth Vader. Come on. I cannot believe people still to this day treat it like the autograph wasn't real, and it's real. I actually had a friend authenticate it. Actually look at it and say, yep, that's the authentic one. And again, I was also a child. When you're a child, you're not really given much of a chance. But here's the thing with special needs, with special ed. And this is what I got told. And it traumatized me for life. And it is the worst thing to tell me. Here it is. Alright, when I was a kid, and this is absolutely what happened, I was told, in no circumstances, I was going to end up, having this happen to me. Alright, 1. This was what I was told. This is not true now, thank God. Or any God out there. When you graduate from high school, you go to the mental hospital. Yes, that's what they told me in elementary school when I was in college. And I told my mother, I'm not gonna do that. My parents actually thought that was pretty gross. Here I am, a teenager, being told I am not going to graduate from high school. I'm not going to go to high school. I'm going to go to a mental hospital because I'm special needs. You know what? Screw that. My mom literally heard me say that. She's like, are you okay? No, I'm not okay. I'm going to college. I don't give a rat's ass. My mom sat there going, good. So I ended up going to college, and I ended up getting an associate's degree in general education. I couldn't really go any further because, one, I ran out of money, and two, I have a lot of debt. Thank you, college. If I went back, I would probably go for a degree in political science or international business. Because, honestly, I like international anything. But my mother once said that was actually the worst thing ever to tell a kid, is that I would be forced to adhere to the whole, you don't go to college, you go to an institution, because that's what happens to speds. And you know what? I didn't feel threatened by that. You know what I did? I went to college anyway and just did what I could. And ended up with a bunch of horror stories about my college teacher, who is named Miss Rue. Of course. After that, I went to college, and I learned a lot from people, especially from people like, I would say the best people I learned from was from, my parents, on how to rely on myself, but how not to be too overly reliant on the system. So I'm going to close out by saying, yes, that did happen. A lot of things happened. And when you go to college, you think, oh my god, things are going to get worse. It doesn't. So anyway, I'm going to say, have a nice night. Enjoy. Be happy.